Adding AI to Java, a talk I just gave. Claude Haiku writes haiku, sort of. Devin has come for us all. And the usual collection of silly tweets, toots, and other posts. Welcome to Tales from the Jar Side. Welcome. My name is Ken Cousin. This is my free weekly newsletter, Tales from the Jar Side. On this newsletter, we try not to just talk about what happened, but try to explain in technology why it happened and what it means and what effect it may have on people in the field in the future. Let's take a look. Now, the subtitle this week was, When I Was Young, I Was Poor. After years of struggle, I am no longer young. Rimshot. Okay, I'm also not poor anymore either, but whatever. It's a gag, and this week I had my birthday, so I thought it was appropriate to throw in a gag like that. So let's dive in. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter, for the week of March 10th through 17th, 2024. This week I taught week 2 of my Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course on the O'Reilly Learning Platform, and I had a private course on Spring and RESTful Web Services. That took a lot of time and effort. I also gave a presentation at the group formerly known as the New England Java Users Group, now known as a Boston area Java Users ACM chapter. We'll get to that. Regular readers of and listeners to, and of course video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, feel free to subscribe using the button on the newsletter, or you can subscribe on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@talesfromthejarside. Okay, first things first, I visited the Boston Java Users ACM chapter. That mouthful is the new name for the group that used to be known as the New England Area Java Users Group. It's always one of my favorite user groups to visit. I've spoken there a couple times, but I really had a good time. I've always enjoyed the place, and I was glad to go back again. Now, ACM, I believe, is the Association for Computing Machinery. That is as old as it sounds. It's been around a while. But it's a national organization, and it really is very relevant to academic issues. So they have a large library of academic papers and things like that. The only difficulty I have speaking there is that it is about a 2-hour drive from where I live. So to go drive 2 hours into Boston traffic, then speak for a few hours, socialize with people, and then drive 2 hours home makes for a pretty tiring day. But that's the only downside. Otherwise, I really like it. Now, my talk was called Practical AI Tools for Java Developers, something I've been working on for the past several months. I have lots of videos on this on my YouTube channel and elsewhere. And it probably won't come as much of a surprise to readers of this newsletter that that's a topic I've been preparing to speak on. So they gave me lots of time. They told me I had 2 full hours, and I used it, Now, if everybody started walking out, I would have cut back. I would have stopped. But they were all interested and had lots of questions. And we basically waited until they more or less kicked us out at the end of the regular meeting. I could have gone longer. But that was a lot of fun. Now, if I go to the actual link, you'll see that they have it here. And they want me to rate the event. And I'm so tempted to rate it either with 5 stars or 1 star. But I can't decide which. So I'll just skip it. And they talk about what it's used for. That description's a little out of date. And they have some pictures that occurred at the presentation, and that was fun. And I included a couple of them in the newsletter. So this one was a tweet by one of the attendees that said, "Packed house tonight at Boston Java Users," with me talking about AI. And there's the picture. And there was another picture, at which point I felt obligated to remind people, just remember, the camera adds 10 pounds, and there were at least 3 cameras on me at the time. For a variety of reasons, I'm going to be speaking and writing a lot about AI and Java, the combination, over the next few months, and I'll talk about that as I go along. So this was a great opportunity to try out some of the new slides, some new applications and code, not to mention a few new gags, which were okay. I think I still need to keep working on that. So thank you very much for the organizers of the group for the invitation. And this was partly arranged and sponsored by the No Fluff Just Stuff tour, which was wonderful. So thanks for that as well. Just to click on that, here is the New England Software Symposium, which will be taking place on May 3rd and 4th in Boston. Well, it's actually going to be in Wakefield, Mass, as they say up here. So that's a bit north of the city. About a month ago, Anthropic, the company behind the Claude AI tool, released a version 3 of Claude. And in version 3, they broke it into 3 different size models. One was the very large one, which is known as Opus, and that's only available by a subscription. Then there is Sonnet, which is their default model that's used inside their web page. And finally, they promised one but didn't release it, called Haiku. Haiku was the small, fast, inexpensive one that's pretty much designed for use cases where you need a quick turnaround and a quick answer. So I'm guessing things like customer service apps and stuff like that. Well, Tuesday, they released Haiku, and I wanted to access it programmatically. I don't have the regular $20 a month subscription, but I do have an API key and my credit card registered there, so I can access these things programmatically from Java. Well, I finally figured out how to get access to Haiku. They did have a nice blog post about it being released, but didn't say what the name of the model was. I eventually tracked it down as Claude 3 Haiku 2024-0307, so for March 7th, 2024. And here's my Java test case that is not showing the implementation, but I'm asking it to write a haiku about Java development with AI tools. There's the constant that I'd added already to specify the one I want, and then you drill down into the response to get the text out of it. So the first response I got back was artificial minds coding Java with insight, crafting digital art. The problem is crafting digital art is 6 syllables. Oops. Yeah, so I said, try again. So we got artificial mind enhancing Java's power, so that's good. Code flows effortlessly. So again, 6 syllables, so we got another problem. I switched to Opus just to see if the size of the model mattered, and it wrote code flows like a stream. Ooh, that's nice. AI guides the developer. Java springs to life. Uh-oh. AI guides the developer. That's 8 syllables. I mean, and I'm assuming AI is 2 syllables, right? I mean, that's how you'd read it out loud. So even that had issues. I tried adding more information. It's always a good idea to give it a bit more context. Write a haiku about Java development with AI tools. Remember that in a haiku, the first line should have 5 syllables, the second should have 7, the third should have 5. And the result I got back with haiku again was coding with AI's aid, Java's power and grace unfold, seamless development. And every single line has the wrong number of syllables. That's 6 followed by 8 followed by 6. It's like, oops. Oh well, I tried. But as I'll eventually show when I ever do get around to releasing my stupid AI tricks video, you know, AI models just have a terrible time counting syllables or computing string lengths or any of that stuff. What a mess. Let's move on. So my Tales from the Jar Side YouTube channel hit a milestone. As you can see in the nice little picture here, we hit 30,000 views. Cool. I have no idea what that means, or, I mean, other than the fact that, yeah, 30,000 people looked at something on the channel. I have around 160, 170 videos on there by now, so they're starting to add up. I guess that's good. I'm still not anywhere near close to being monetized. I currently have approximately 1,750 subscribers, something in that ballpark, which is good, but the watch hours are nowhere near the 3,000 or 4,000 that I need in the last year to become part of the partner program. Again, these are just milestones I'm keeping track of. I'm just going to keep making the videos the way I'm making them, and we'll see what happens. It is my cue, however, to hang my head in shame and say, yes, the video that I promised last week and promised the week before still is not ready. I've made various mistakes in recording, like forgetting to turn on a screen share. I've also recorded things and not gotten the results I wanted, and I also have a lot of cleanup to do. The video that I am promising you is the one on stupid AI tricks, mostly in this edition about counting the number of letters and words. And that's going to come out this week, I promise. That's the plan. Okay, let's move on. Devin, or the devil incarnate. Yeah, let's get hyperbolic, shall we? Now, I've taken the old saying about not defending people when they are being harassed, and I went with this little silliness. You know how the old saying goes, first they came for the buggy whip manufacturers, but I didn't make buggy whips, so I said nothing. Then they came for the accounting clerks, but I liked VisiCalc, so again I said nothing. Then they made Devin, and there was no one left to help me. Yes, right. I mean, there's a lot of changes going on in the AI community or in the IT community. Of course, there's always a lot of changes going on in the IT community. But this does feel revolutionary, and there is definitely a threat to our jobs. Now, AI people, or I should say IT people in general, are somewhat notorious for being somewhat callous when other people's jobs are threatened. You know, oh, you'll just have to adapt, or there'll be more other jobs later, and all that kind of stuff, which always rubs me the wrong way. I hate the insensitivity that happens when, you know, the Silicon Valley comes up with something new and just assumes everybody will adapt because they just want to make money. That just bothers me. But here it is. This is an AI tool that actually threatens developers. So suddenly it was all different, right? At least it was if you looked at the responses to the tweet. Now, the tweet came out on Tuesday, which happened to be my birthday, and as a present, Cognition Labs threatened to put my entire profession out of business. As this tweet says, today we're excited to introduce Devin, the first AI software engineer. Devin is the new state-of-the-art on the SWE bench coding benchmark. We'll talk about that in a minute. Has successfully passed practical engineering interviews from leading AI companies and has even completed real jobs on Upwork, although I feel bad for the people who hired that job. Devin is an autonomous agent. That's right. It's not an AI model. It's an agent that uses an AI model under the hood to solve engineering tasks through the use of its own shell, code editor, web browser. Here's the bottom line. It looks like Devin is essentially a script that iterates over a GPT-4 based model to generate a solution, evaluate the solution, and update the feedback and do it over again and over again and over again. And if you do that a few thousand times or tens of thousands of times, yeah, it's going to iterate to a pretty good solution. At least according to this, when they tried to resolve GitHub issues found in real-world open source projects, it correctly resolved 13.86% of them, which is about 1 in 7. Now, that doesn't sound great, although in the tweet they're saying, oh, it far exceeds the previous state-of-the-art, which was 2% unassisted and 5% assisted. But yeah, okay, neither one of those is great shakes either. And they have a video, and they had a whole series of tweets. So, of course, a lot of the responses were panic. You know, oh, hey, they're coming for our jobs now. So let me give you my take on this. Now, the approach of building in a feedback loop and adjusting to the feedback has been used in AI models before. In fact, one of the most successful examples of this occurred in the chess world. When Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue back in '97, that was really a triumph of just brute force computation. He had to avoid openings that it would already know, try to get it into circumstances where it couldn't use its superior calculation skills. And of course, if you get into any ending with few enough pieces, it's already going to know the answer. That's really hard to beat, but that's pure calculation. There's no insight there. Later, along came the tool called AlphaZero. AlphaZero was trained in what they called a generative adversarial network. And the idea was to say, we're not going to give you any bias at all, just going to have AlphaZero play itself over and over and over again, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and have it work out what works and what doesn't. Just have it figured out itself. Now, in a space with a lot of local maxima, that can get you into trouble. But according to the headlines at the time, after 4 hours, this thing was already the best computer in the world and arguably the best player in the world as well. Because computers these days can mop the floor with Deep Blue. Deep Blue would be nothing compared to those anymore. there's a lot more to say about that, but the interesting thing about AlphaZero from this point of view is that it didn't play like a computer. It kind of played like it was following interesting principles, and those principles were slightly different from the ones that grandmasters had worked out over hundreds of years. It really valued space more than regular grandmasters do. It was willing to give up material for that. It was willing to push the rook pawn all the time. This was almost funny the way it did that, again, for space considerations. And this really seemed to work for it. It would make moves to constrain the opponent's options, even if that wasn't necessarily helping its own plans at all. Just very interesting. And a lot of grandmasters changed their game based on what they learned from it, including guys like Magnus Carlsen. Very impressive. So bringing this back to Devin, that's that approach of saying, okay, solve it, see what the answer was, adjust your solution and do it again and again and again, does seem like a good idea, like a valid approach. And if you can build a feedback loop that works like that, great. My problem at first is that, I mean, with a chess game, there's a win and a loss and a draw. You know what the end result is. You have a deterministic answer. It just takes you a little while to get there. When you're trying to maximize the values of functions, even functions that are highly wavy or have a very bumpy search space and everything, that can get a little involved, and you might need to have some nonlinear jumps so that it doesn't get stuck in a local minimum or a local maximum, something like that. When you're solving programming problems, how do you know you're done? How do you know you're right? What's the evaluation function? And the evaluation function in many cases, especially in real world problems, is not just it doesn't have any bugs. It's more like, no, I like what I have. It's more elegant. It's more appropriate. It's better able to handle changes later. It satisfies the user's requirements. Okay, there's a lot of gray area in there. There's a lot of soft skills involved. So they must have picked problems where you could come up with a good, solid evaluation function and then tried to optimize it. So that's what they did. And my experience suggests that that is a good approach for problems that handle that. But even then, they only got it right 1 out of 7 times. I mean, that's not great, but we're just starting. And here I quoted more or less the line from Picard in Best of Both Worlds Part 1, Star Trek Next Generation, when the Borg is coming saying, I feel like the Roman Emperor Honorius watching the Visigoths coming over the hills to sack the city, wondering if I'm truly watching the fall of Rome. You know, okay, for some value of the word fall, there's a lot of debate in that. Should we be worried that Devin's going to put us all out of business? Not this year. Next year? Probably not next year. There's a couple of reasons, like I'm pointing out, that maybe if there's a well-defined evaluation function that this is a good idea, but the process of giving it feedback and driving it toward a good solution is not necessarily going to be a trivial one. The other thing I didn't remember seeing anybody talk about is the expense of this thing. If they really are using GPT-4 under the hood, which it seems to suggest they are, running GPT-4 constantly, tens of thousands of times for days on end, that's not cheap. That's quite an investment. And that's not necessarily going to be cheaper than talking to a person who could solve certain problems very easily. You know, the danger, as always, with AI tools these days is not that an AI tool can do your job. It's that a manager will think an AI tool can do your job and then they can cut personnel. They're always trying to cut headcount and impress Wall Street that way, as evil as that truly is. So I don't think it's quite time yet to go for the torches and pitchforks, but it is something to keep an eye on. I expect that this approach will eventually be very favorable, and there will be parts of our job that we can delegate to a tool like this and say, yeah, come up with an optimized way of doing this part of the problem. You know, there's certain things that really are routine, and AI tools are already helping us on that, and this would take it to the next level beyond that. We'll see. When it's ready for prime time, it's not even really out yet. When it's ready, I'll talk more about it when it gets here. Let's move on to our tweets and toots. Thank you for listening to that rant. Okay, the first one I put in, you say you want an evolution. Well, you know. So Sarah Anderson's a wonderful cartoonist. She's great. I bought several of her books. This one has some kind of octopus-related creature saying to a horseshoe crab, you are awesome, never change. And he says, I won't. And 250 million years later, he's saying, I may have taken that too literally. Yeah, okay. Still, you got something that works, you stick with it, I guess. This one was entitled The Spice Must Flow, and it looks like it's a spice, rack, bottle, whatever, labeled House Atreides, and it's called Melange, and you see the little spice with the container. Yeah, very clever, very nicely done, even has the sandworm logo there. It says, I think the person who put it up was named Adrian Kosmachewski, something like that, or I don't know how to pronounce it. But at any rate, he was on Mastodon, and he posted that. I thought it was excellent. This one says, upgrade today. Somebody named Max Liebman. If it's German pronunciation, I suppose it'd be Liebman. Said, inside you, there are two wolves, which is kind of a meme going around. Wolf Basic is free for individuals and allows you ad-supported access to all of the classic features of the Wolf platform. Or, for $19.99 per month, upgrade to Wolf Plus and unlock our ad-free experience, priority howls, and all of our pro features. Yep, got to get some of that sweet, sweet subscription revenue, don't we? I like this one called Had the Talk with My Mom. This looks like it's a snapshot of a text message that says, I am a smart and capable man. I have 30 plus years of tech experience, and I say this with the utmost sincerity and humility. I cannot help you with printer issues. They are arcane and beyond my ken. They are built using science and black magic. No one understands them. They are as likely to need a priest as a mechanic. Oh yeah. I suppose you'd need an old priest and a young priest, which for those of you too young to remember, that's a reference to the Exorcist movie. On a related note, the Mastodon feed, Mostly Harmless, posted, Rage Against the Machine never specified what kind of machine they were angry with, but I reckon it was probably an inkjet printer. Yeah, I can see that. This one is about all the chaos going on in the UK media, speculating on what's going on with Kate these days. This said, the King of England lies dying, another conspiracy theory, and one of his sons has been exiled, a princess has vanished, plague stalks the land, and the treasury has been plundered. Now is the time for strange women lying in ponds to distribute swords to form the basis of government. Strange women lying in ponds is no basis for a system of government. Executive power derives from a mandate from the people, right? If you want to follow up on the Monty Python, the Holy Grail reference. One of the great scenes in that movie. Oh my goodness. See the violence inherent in the system. Yes. So all we know about Kate right now is that she's out of sight after surgery and she really does need a decent Photoshop tutor. Rimshot. I used to be in aerospace. I was an aerospace research scientist for years, and it was all aeronautical. I mean, it's all aero stuff. Worked with Boeing off and on many times. Worked with Pratt & Whitney, actually, which made engines and sold them to Boeing. And this never occurred to me. This post by Elle Gray, she said, if you're going to name your country Boeing, the plane should at least bounce when they crash. Boing, Boeing, Boing. Oh, all those years that never occurred to me. That's great. That's great. This sign says it all. It's a sign that's a warning. It says, please do not enter the dangerous area beyond this gate. You quite possibly will get hurt. Then you will sue. Then a protracted court battle will ensue, exhausting your financial resources, and you will lose because this sign that warned you will be Exhibit 1. Yeah, that ought to do it. That was worth making the sign. I really like that one. Yes, somebody please show this to Zack Snyder or anybody considering using Superman in a movie. In response to this comment that said, what's your most controversial opinion about Superman? This shouldn't be controversial at all. Ian McIntyre replied, Superman stories aren't a fantasy about how good it would be to have power. They're a fantasy about what it would be like if someone with power was good. Oh, that's so deep. That's great. It's like they say Superman is hard to write about because he doesn't have a hero's journey. Okay, maybe not, but the real impact of Superman isn't the hero's journey. It's how he changes the world around him. people meet Superman and they go, nobody could be that good. And then when he is good, they're affected. They change their behavior. They are inspired to try to be better and make the world better. That's what makes those stories so fun. Having a dark, depressed Superman is just totally missing the point. It's just so wrong. At any rate, I thought that was really clever. Okay, next. Elle was on a roll, Elle Gray, so I grabbed another one of hers. She said, as of right this second, I need to start a band with 2 other people so we can use this as the greatest album cover ever. So one bird looking one way, one bird looking the other, one in the middle, all squished together. What a great album cover that would make. Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. That also, of course, is my cue to say, by popular lack of demand or complete lack of popular demand, looks like the good old Null Pointers, our rock band of Java developers, and, we'll be performing at DevNexus in April. Here's DevNexus. That is the website at devnexus.com. The conference is the first week in April, or whatever that is, 9th through 11th in Atlanta. And we're playing at one of the evening events. I think it's Wednesday night, something like that. We'll see how it goes. We will have our annual rehearsal, 3-4 hours, something like that, Tuesday night, and hopefully it'll all come together so we can perform on Wednesday. Yes, have I lowered expectations enough? But we'll see. Okay, this one says, why indeed? And this was just inspired. It was a quote. It said, when I was a student at Cambridge, I remember an anthropology professor holding up a picture of a bone with 28 incisions carved in it. This is often considered to be man's first attempt at a calendar, she explained. She paused as we dutifully wrote this down. My question to you is, what man needs to mark 28 days? I would suggest to you that this is woman's first attempt at a calendar. It was a moment that changed my life. And in that second, I stopped to question almost everything I'd been taught about the past. How often had I overlooked women's contributions? I mean, is that just a wonderful demonstration of bias? And not bias antagonistic. It's just something you would overlook because that's not your background. It just wouldn't occur to you. And this is why you need more people in the field not like you, just to see things that you might not recognize. I think that's great. That was really a nice demonstration. Okay, and finally, cats in the machine. So here it says, I'm going to the vending machine. Want anything? A Kit Kat, please. And there's poor little kitties caught in the vending machine. I have no idea how it got in there. You can't crawl in underneath like that. I mean, the thing's got it's sealed, right? I mean, sort of. Anyway, it was an amusing picture. I trust that the poor kitty got out. Although they do have stuff to eat in there, So anyway, it did remind me that when my son was 4 years old, 3 or 4, I think, he was happily eating a Kit Kat bar, and his auntie asked him, do you like Kit Kats? And he said, oh yeah, I like doggies too. He was so surprised when we all cracked up. I mean, it was such an innocent thing. And that little boy will be 32 in May. So yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday, but don't ask me what I had for lunch yesterday. Have a great week, everybody. Now, this week, I have the return of my Trinity College class on large-scale and open-source software. I also have a training class on Spring AI. Spring AI just changed versions up to 0.8.1, so I'm busily updating all my code and examples. I finished this morning, week 3 of my Spring in 3 Weeks course, and then I do promise I will get that stupid AI video done. It'd be nice to actually release that and see how it goes. So have fun, everybody. Thanks for listening. And hey, cue that theme song.
Hey there, devs, it's time to tune in to Tales from the Jar, so let's begin. Java, Kotlin, and Spring, oh my. Cookie, Gradle, don't be shy. Tales from the Jar side, oh yeah. Crack open the code, let's take a ride. From design patterns to the latest trends, your weekly tech talks that never end.